I started this process as a victim and I became a survivor. And I'm proud of that. And I'm really proud of what I went through. And I wish that I wish I had more education and I knew more about it before it happened.
Mm.
I wish it was something that was normally, as a society. Like I wish that it wasn't just this there wasn't this like stigma about talking about it.
Mhm.
Now, do I want to go and like tell my deepest, darkest secrets? No. But I wish that there was more awareness of abuse and trauma and mental health in general.
Mhm.
Just, I wish there was more. I wish therapy was a thing that everybody did from, I just wish there was more. Because any kind of a situation can be a traumatic experience for
Mhm.
someone, especially kids. So I wish there was more awareness to it. Um, and I wish I didn't have to learn it the hard way. But I'm glad I'm happy with where I am because of what happened to me and because of I am who I am because of what happened to me. And I'm a stronger version of myself. So, and I've learned to embrace and love myself even though that happened to me.
Good. I mean, that's the goal. The
Yeah.
goal is that you come out on the other side stronger than you were before you started, honestly. And so I'm really thankful to hear you say that. And I understand the process and it takes a lot of work. So congratulations and good for you. Like I'm proud of you for being able to have the follow through ism, follow throughness, whatever the word is, steadfastness. That's what I'm looking for, to actually stay on that journey and bring yourself full circle to become the stronger version of you. It's not easy to do, and there is
Thank
no
you.
handbook. Every woman I've ever worked with, and men included, who have been a victim of domestic violence, everyone straight across the board without a doubt have said, I would rather be hit than the
Hmm.
mental and the emotional turmoil that I go through, because you can hit me and it hurts and then the bruise goes away and I'm fine. But those words that you said and the names that you called me and the degradation and the humiliation carry with me everywhere that I go. So when I leave the abusive situation and I walk into my hotel room, maybe as my safe space for the night, and I look in the mirror, I still see all those things that you said that I am. And those are the things that linger, and those are the things that are so hard to recover from. It is a lifelong
Yes.
process in some respects.
Yeah. And it's just being aware of your triggers,
Mhm.
like knowing what learning what your triggers what might be, and then knowing how you're going to react and calm
Yes.
yourself down and ground yourself. That's why, I mean, therapy, I think for anybody is a great thing to have because anything can happen, but definitely when you're dealing from with the trauma and you're dealing with abuse, you need to find a therapist that specializes in that trauma based therapy.
Yes.
Here in Kansas City, I went to Synergy,
Oh, I know about
and
that program.
it's it it saved my life. My therapist, he was amazing. In fact, I was very nervous about having a male therapist.
Mhm.
But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. We're gonna try it. And he's an amazing therapist, and he saved my life. My daughter actually saw him as well too, and I mean, he's amazing. The program itself is great. I know I've met a lot of women who've gone through that program and it has helped them in so many ways. So yeah, so I was grateful for Synergy as well.
That's awesome. I like to hear good reports from sister programs. They're one of our sister programs, so that's fantastic.
Yes, it was a great experience for me. And I mean, not being able to afford much, he was extremely helpful with that as well. So it was great. But I like I feel that therapy is kind of like a kind of frowned upon in some ways, like going to a shrink or going to somebody to like, why don't get in my head. But when in all actuality, I mean, we kind of need to have that the outside person to be able to look at what's happening and ask the questions that maybe our friends and family aren't able to because they're so close to the situation.
Right.
um Being able to have that sounding board, um I know that it's helped my daughter, and I know that it was great for me. I kind of would need to get back into it, to be honest. I think that it's something that you need to kind of like do regularly. Like you have your regular medical checkups, you need to have your mental checkups too. Um, but having the accountability and
Mhm.
having a good therapist that's gonna hold you accountable and not allow you to not put the work in. Because unfortunately, recovering from a traumatic experience and from abuse, it's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work, and it's unfair. It's unfair work. It's unfair work that you didn't do this to yourself. It's unfair. It's not fair that you have to put all this work in to make yourself feel normal again.
Mhm.
And it's not fair.
No, not a bit.
But doing it with a group of women who are going through that with you and building relationships and building, I mean, I've built great friendships out through this process, and I built great bonds with through the process. Um, and being able to do it by doing it that way and doing it in a safe, healthy way, it's worth it. Who knows? Like I went through that and I worked through all kinds of other stuff. And
Yeah.
I was able to get through all of that other stuff, probably that I may never have been able to do. And I have great healthy relationships um, with people that I don't think I would have relationships with if it wasn't for me working through some of the stuff that I went through.
Mhm. Yeah, that commonality is so important. You know, there's nothing feels better, and it doesn't necessarily matter if it's the work that you do or a hobby that you have. Nothing feels better, and specifically healing from domestic violence, nothing feels better than sitting in a room full of people who get it. Like you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
explain all that stuff. Oh, why didn't you just leave? You don't have to explain it. They're in the same situation, they get it. And that commonality, you know, they know your shorthand. And so it's just that there's no judgment. It's, hey, I've been in your shoes, or that's how I felt, or it feels so validating. And there's such
Mm-hmm.
comfort in knowing that you're not the only one. So many people walk around thinking, I've got the scarlet letter on my forehead, I'm a victim of abuse, and everybody knows it just when I walk into the room. And so I think that commonality piece really makes a big difference. And
Yeah,
it's safe to talk to people who have been there.
it really is. It being feeling valid and feeling validated in what you're thinking or in what you're going through, and even if you feel like it is doesn't make any sense to anybody, but having just one person, just having just that one person who help reassures you and lets you know that you're not going crazy, you are okay, and this is normal. And understanding that and knowing that, I think, is key to being able to get through that journey of recovery from that.
Sure. Yeah. Rebecca, I'm afraid I've been doing all the talking. Do you want to? I see you writing down some questions, I think.
Well, and I'm just writing down some things too, not only questions, but just some fascinating things about your story. I want to comment, first of all, I love that smile of yours when you're
Thank
talking
you.
about how proud you are of where you've come, of where you are now and the accomplishments you've made. That speaks a million things that can't even be expressed by somebody like myself who's never met you, seeing you for the first time, and just I can see the progress. I might not know you, I might not know your story, I might not know your background, but I see it in that smile of the progress that you've made. It's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Becky, you can just dive in and take over whenever you want to. I did have I had a comment I wanted to make. You were talking about how you were upset with yourself, and I know I'm not using your words, so I apologize for that. That you did not leave even though he almost killed you, but you waited until he had cheated on you before you left. And the thought crossed my mind, I don't know, I saw it in my mom, saw it in myself. We don't feel like we're worth it when we're in that situation. And so it's just me, so okay, so he wants to hurt me. Okay, so I'm not really worth that much anyway. That's all right. But when it comes to the fact that he just destroys that trust by cheating, it is a different topic. And it doesn't make any sense to anybody who hasn't been there. They're not going to get it. They're going to hear my words, but it's going to go right over their heads because they have no point of reference for that whatsoever. And Becky, you really expressed that well when you talked about the damage that does to somebody's psyche, that they've been told over and over again, you're never going to amount to anything, you're not any good, you're this, you're that, whatever, and how that will plague you, even though you may have been raised in a good, healthy home, but you hear that over and over again for 3 years, it'll do a number on you. It really will. And you begin to believe it after a while.
I will say that my support system is probably what saved me. He did isolate me, and I was isolated, but my family is so big and involved. There's only so much isolating he could do. Like, it's hard to explain if you don't know my family, but there was only so much that could be done, and he became more physical when he realized I couldn't be isolated anymore. So it was, I can't break her down any more than she already is. Like, that I'm hitting a point. So let me stop doing that and let me try a different tactic. And it took me a minute to realize, like, because looking back, whenever I was going through it, like, it feels like everything was a whirlwind. Like, when I started going through the recovery and like working through it, it felt like everything was kind of crazy, and my brain was like a whirlwind. Like, I couldn't really figure out where did it start, when did it, like, but it wasn't until I started working through it in a healthy way and doing the therapy that I was able to kind of like break it down into pieces and look at different parts and come to realize some of those things. So, yeah.
And that's how I have expressed it, like in my book, what it was like, because you really, there's no other way to put it. And you worded it really well. It's like, I felt like I was in the middle of a tornado, literally in the center of the tornado, just going, 200 miles an hour, and my brain would not stop. And it is so invaluable to be able to sit down with somebody who can take those things one piece at a time and talk about those and process those. You're exactly right. Very well worded on that.
It takes therapy when you're coming out of a trauma or an abusive relationship trauma situation. It is best to always have a therapist who specializes in trauma. Because you can't bring somebody through their trauma if you don't know how to bring them back. So yeah.
That is very, very true.
Well, and that's why there's so many in the domestic violence movement. There's so much education out there right now, encouraging shelters specifically to understand. They're calling it trauma-informed care, because it's
Mhm.
different. Like you can take care of somebody, but then taking care of a trauma survivor is different. And so understanding that and understanding how trauma affects the psyche of a person, it is a specialization, you're correct.
Mhm.
You know, and then that whirlwind, I was going to say that whirlwind tornado that you were talking about. The challenging thing is you're in a situation where the rules change every day. Rebecca, how many times have we've
Mhm.
talked about that? Where today this is the expectation, and so I didn't succeed today because yesterday the expectation was something else.
Mhm.
And but then tomorrow the expectation is going to be this, and so you're on this constant while you're thinking 2,000 thoughts constantly all day every day
And
is
trying to
what's it
keep
going to be today?
everything in, yeah, and trying to keep everything in each compartment so that nobody knows and figures that out. Nobody outside figures it out.
Yeah.
Not making sure you keep it a secret from everybody else. You got to keep the facade up, but then still take care of stuff at home and hope that today will be a day without any fighting or chaos or just any of that. And when you have one of those days, it's almost like a relief.
Mhm.
And when you're dealing with that, coming out of that, your life still feels that way. And as I know I'm not in that situation anymore, I know that I'm safe. I know that, but you never really, you still live in that fight or flight.
Mhm.
And I was living in a constant fight or flight or fight and flight, both sometimes
Yeah.
for so long. It it took me a minute to kind of get out of that.
Mhm.
And then I kind of felt like I was going into the opposite direction and I went into a depression state.
Mhm.
And like when you're all the way up here all the time and then having to come down here, it it it, it still felt like a whirlwind.
Mhm.
And being able to learn how to do that, trying to come out of that, you can't come out of that without having a professional help you. And you can, but you can't come out of you can't be healthy.
You're definitely not going to be as strong if you don't have
Right.
it, if you don't have a professional. I agree with that completely. Um, what do you think has been your biggest accomplishment? I mean, you said like, okay, I'm going to make this like a two-parter, I think.
Okay.
Two-part question. um, so you talked about the loss that you felt when someone said something about what you used to be like before this
Mhm.
relationship. Um, and I like the way you worded that because it's really true that you know, and I can see that. I can see that where I have experienced a loss of what I used to be. So looking at that loss and then compared to where you are now, what are you seeing are your greatest achievements? And in any if you want to comment on either end of that question with the loss or with the achievements, either one. I'm not saying that very
Um,
well.
I think my greatest achievement is being who I am and having the understanding to help not just with abuse, but mental health and being able to be that cheerleader for my patients and for the people around me and just being able to be a good human being, a kind human being. I have more of an understanding of other people's what other people might be struggling. So saying hello to someone at the gas station and just being aware of other people and what they might be struggling with. I think that's
Mhm.
a huge thing for me, and I'm proud of that achievement. I'm proud of that part of me. Um, the lost part, I definitely struggle with a lot more insecurities about my choices and about my trust and not trusting other people, it's trusting myself.
Mhm.
And I wish that I had that back. And I didn't have to work so hard to get it back because I'm still working on that,
Mhm.
not second guessing myself. And I think that's something I kind of might always have, but me being aware of it will help in the process of it, but I kind of wish I had more trust in myself to make choices. I think that's something that I'm still learning very much to deal with and to work through.
Well, you hit on a good key one right there. That's really true.
Yeah.
That's one thing that my ex-husband used to always accuse my mother of. Is she always second guesses everybody. She second guesses herself, and I've really seen that I do the same thing. What would you say to that, Becky? What would your feedback be on that?
You know, you've heard my analogy of trust before. Building trust is like getting into a hot bathtub. You do it a little bit at a time, because if it's scalding hot and you just jump right in, you're going to hurt all over. And that is the same for building trust with another person. But I also think it's like building trust with ourselves, because when we come out of that abusive situation, we've been told that we can't make sound choices. We've been told that we're stupid. We've been told that we're uneducated. We've been told that we're unhireable. We've been told that we're terrible parents. And when that's drilled into your head and drilled into your head and drilled into your head, you believe it. So you learn to trust yourself in that same respect. Is that you find yourself in that situation, you need to remember, what did it feel like when my inner voice used to talk to me? So you go back to the former you. When my inner voice used to talk to me, I used to feel sick to my stomach. Or what did it look like? I used to have a ringling in my ears, whatever it was. What did it look like? Remember that. And then when you feel that feeling again, be willing to take the risk to trust yourself. And when you do, and it goes well, put that in your pocket and remember that this went well. And then you build on that and you build on that. Because I will disagree with you for half a second, Bonnie, and I'm sorry, but I do believe that you can get back to the place where you can 100% trust yourself again. But it is a process. I mean, it takes work and it takes concentrated effort to say, I am going to, some people call it discernment. Some people call it a sign from God. Some people call it their inner voice. Some people call it this weird feeling that comes over me, whatever it is. But remember what that is, and then practice it. You have to practice it. But the more practice makes perfect. The more you practice it, the more you will confirm to yourself, oh, I did make good choices. Oh, I was spot on with that.
Yeah.
But it can't happen. I mean, but it's not, I'm going to snap my fingers and tomorrow it's all good.
If only, right?
Right. Because like you said, we find ourselves in that, I'll take one step forward and 2 steps back and 3 steps forward and 1 step back. But when I talk to people about that particular topic, I usually get a piece of paper and I draw a circle on the piece of paper and say, let's say you started here and you took 5 steps forward. Oh, but then you slipped and you took 2 steps back. You're still further than when you started.
Right.
So you have to be willing to look at the progress that you've made and acknowledge the progress and own it, claim it, and hold on to it, because that progress is what you can build from.
Yes,
you can get back in that place.
Yeah, and it was the hardest thing for me to do, but journaling was great. I encourage my patients all the time to, journal your symptoms, journal what's going on, because you don't know, you don't always remember where you started when you're going through it.
Yeah.
But I will say it was probably the hardest thing for me to actually sit down and do. But you're right. Like you've had, and having that person, that professional help you and show you that stuff is going to be key to a lot of people, a lot of women being able to recover and to work through what they need to work through, because they've just, when you're going through it, you don't realize it. You don't know it because you're still feeling that chaos. You're still feeling that whirlwind, that tornado. And so being able to writing things down was actually very helpful for me. And I think that if anybody else is in that situation where they don't feel like they've accomplished or they're making strides, it's being able to keep track of that, and knowing that you probably have come a lot farther than you think.
Yeah, and journaling is a good way to recognize that. If you can go back and, what did I write last year and where am I writing this year? When I talked about people that maybe have come to support group for multiple years, we used to have a standard, like a support group manual that we would go through where it was a topic that had a story with it and some questions. We don't use it anymore because we've kind of evolved from that. But when we began using that, the woman, I think of a woman specifically, she came to our support group for 12 years. And I was always astounded when she would share information because she would say, I remember when I first answered this question, and this is how I answered it. But 5 years later, this is how I'm answering it. And then 12 years later, this is how I'm answering it. And so she that was a journaling tool for her to recognize progress that she'd made as she went through that healing journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it does help to kind of chronicle it in some respects. But then I wanted to ask you, Rebecca, you would ask a question that made me think of wording it this particular way. Who was stronger, Bonnie? The Bonnie before or the Bonnie now?
Ooh, good
The Bonnie
question.
now.
Love
The
it.
Bonnie now is definitely stronger.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, the Bonnie now is definitely stronger.
Yeah.
Because not only did I work through the trauma that happened to me, but I also worked through other types of things in my life, and it's made me stronger. I have a stronger relationship with family members I didn't think I would ever have a relationship with, and it's helped me. So yeah, I would definitely say that the Bonnie now is stronger.
Yeah.
Still a work in progress.
Sure.
But
We
definitely
are.
stronger. So yeah.
But I mean, there's the hope in the message of, you weren't broken. You felt broken for a time, but you're clearly not broken. In fact, you're stronger than you ever were before. And so, I mean, that's the epitome of the healing message right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's so exciting. That's what's so fun about doing these interviews and just listening to each individual talk and tell their story and see those huge accomplishments.
Yeah, and just seeing the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have different perspectives on different things. And I think that's how we learn from each other, is knowing that we all have different perspectives. I mean, we have doctors, for example, they all practice, they all go to school this almost the same amount of time, depending on what they go, but they all practice differently. And being able to come together with the different perspectives and different ideas and different experiences will educate enough people and will help. It's kind of like you pin in the water and you throw a rock in the water and it just ripples.
Yep.
That's the way I feel like having that different perspectives and being able to learn from it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Where do you feel you are with your triggers now? Can you look back and see that you're better now than you were?
Yes. Usually if I feel triggered, there actually was a situation that I'm actually okay with sharing. I ran into my ex's niece at the gas station, and I had not seen her since, and she was super kind. And she, but we had a little short conversation. She goes, "I'm going to make sure that he doesn't know that I saw you. I'm going to make it for you and Gabby." And I was like, "Thank you. I appreciate that." And at first I kind of felt like, okay, I was taken aback. But then as I was leaving the gas station, his dad was there. And so that was a little bit more of a trigger for me. Like I had that conversation with him. I talked with him. He was like, "I'm super proud of you. I'm glad that you and Gabby are doing well." And then I got in the car and I kind of felt myself starting to panic a little bit. And I was able to keep myself from panicking. But then I called my daughter and I told her what happened. And as I was talking about it and I was telling her about it, I could feel myself calming down. And she helped me calm down. And me 2 years ago would have had a full-blown panic attack. me 3, 4 years ago would have probably, had a full blown panic attack and wouldn't have been able to have that conversation with either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to stand my ground, and I was able to, even though I started to feel not so strong on the inside because of the trigger, I didn't show it. And then I got into my car safely and I worked through that, and I allowed myself to feel strong again. So I think that with my triggers, I've definitely come a very, very, very long way.
Sounds like it. What do you say to that, Becky? That's
Well, then I mean, that's fabulous that you've come that far. What we learn as time goes on is we can actually process through a trigger in 30 seconds or less, and nobody even knows it ever happened. Because we get so attuned to, these are the things that trigger me. So these are the things that I look out for. And when we're in a safe space today, when I'm not being triggered, I can create a plan of action on how am I going to deal with this trigger. So then when it does happen, I have a plan of action that I can put into place. And seriously, like sometimes it's a blink of an eye and you're done. Now,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there are things that are a little bit harder to process and they take a little bit of time. And so, maybe your plan of action is I call my best friend and we talk about it because she knows what's up and we can process it that way. But I think the best thing that we could do when we're talking about triggers is we identify them and we create a plan of action before we're in that position or being triggered. And I think
Mm-hmm.
going and doing that goes a really long way in that healing process.
Yes, I
They
agree.
they talk about grounding techniques and things like that you can do sitting in a room talking to somebody. The tapping and some things like that are some grounding exercises that nobody even knows you're doing it, and you can work yourself through a situation, not break a sweat, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely.
I'm amazingly impressed. I really, really am. Um, you were talking about you wish there was more awareness of mental health and domestic violence. Um, do you have any game plan as to how you personally can make a difference regarding those two issues? Because I am completely in agreement with you on those.
No, I don't know if I really have a game plan other than like I said before, I just show kindness
Mhm.
to everybody because we don't know what the person that you just passed at the gas station who might look angry but could be dealing with something that initial saying hello, I hope you have a great day, thing. I know that there's more to be done. I just don't know what that looks like yet. I'm still wanting to figure that out. I think that our church having the peace of mind um, services helped with wakening this up within me,
Mhm.
to be able to want to be helpful. And working in the psych world has really helped me to become more aware of things, when dealing with the community. So I don't know exactly what or how, but I think that starting off by just saying a kind word to a stranger
Mhm.
is a great place to start. And I want to be able to do more. I just am hoping to have God show me what exactly that means.
Yeah, and I think that if we worked harder to normalize certain things,
Mhm.
like the heart patient who has to take heart medication or the diabetic who has to take insulin. Well, what if you have PTSD and you have to take a medication for that?
Exactly.
Like if we normalize it, or if we normalize going to a therapist in the same way you
Mm-hmm.
have your yearly well woman exam, well, maybe you should have your yearly therapy session, and maybe that's all it
Yeah.
takes. Or,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to your yearly well woman and they find something physically wrong with you, then you have follow-up. And so if you go to your yearly therapy session and they say, oh, there's some things we could work on, then you do your follow-up. And I think if we could get to the place where we normalize those types of things, the stigma goes away.
I
But
agree.
it's shocking to me that we still live in a society where we're stigmatized for not being 100% all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
normal. That's normal. What's not
I
normal
agree.
is being 100% all the time. That's not normal.
Right.
I agree. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And holding a puppy is therapeutic too.
Very much. I think my dog actually like saved my life when I got her. Like she was actually supposed to be my daughter's dog, and she's definitely not. She's
Yeah.
definitely mine. And like she helped me when I just couldn't.
Yeah.
When I didn't want to get out of bed and when I didn't want to do things.
Yeah. Mine has a habit of making sure that he gets on air every Monday night when we record.
He's a bit of a
He, ha-
ham.
Yeah.
he has to.
He's always here.
He has to. There's it's like, Mom, you expect to record without me? Like, no. No. That's not okay.
The funny thing is, we will talk beforehand on Zoom before we actually start recording. He is nowhere to be seen. And we start recording, and all of a sudden is, hi guys, I'm here.
That is funny.
Yeah, that's
I
what he
love
does.
it. I love
My
it.
dog is camera shy, and he will never look directly in a camera unless you trick him somehow. But I don't know if you noticed, but he came behind me, and
I saw
he,
him.
yeah, he'll do those little cameos, you know.
I'm currently sitting at a tall table, so my dog, she can't make those cameos, but she's been trying. She's been moving around, and my daughter's cat's been getting up on the table trying to inch her way to this side of the screen for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, my kitchen table is a tall table, so you can't see her make the little cameo, but she's tried a couple of times. Mom, what are you talking about? Mom, who are you talking to?
Uh-huh.
I want to see.
Exactly. I want to get in on this conversation.
Involve me, Mom. It's not about you, it's about me.
Yep. They're just like children.
Oh, they are.
Mhm.
They're like 2-year-olds, except for yours,
Mhm.
Becky. Yours is still a little tiny baby, really. But
I mean, he's 8 months old.
yeah, but he's still I don't know. He still kind of has
He's
that.
not quite a toddler yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not there
He's
yet.
almost at the toddler.
Uh-huh.
Oh boy, I'm approaching the terrible twos, am I?
You are.
Don't forget the 3s.
The terrible twos was my favorite age for humans, but not for dogs.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
For humans, 2s and 3s is my favorite age for little kids, but dogs, not so much. I'm really liking the 7, 8, 9 age where she's calming down and isn't so crazy. And like, she's like,
Yeah.
I can take her on the leash and do stuff with her and go and have fun.
Yep.
And she doesn't try to take my shoulder out of socket.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
bad.
Because those big ones can. That's my dog's age too, and I really am loving this age.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I could just keep her this age and
I
she doesn't get any
know.
older, I'd be okay. I'd be really in heaven.
Right? Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
Well, is there anything that you can think of that maybe we have not asked you or you have not told us yet that you wanted to make sure you brought out?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm surprised at how well I did about, not missing any information. I don't think that there's anything.
Okay. Becky, do you have any questions that are unasked?
I don't have any questions, but I just would like to say how impressed I am with the way that you've been able to put your story together. I'm super excited that you're taking the situation that you've come out of and you're really turning it into a positive where you can turn around and truly help people. I think that's amazing and fantastic, and I 100% support that.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I know we just met, and so please don't take this wrong. I'm going to say I'm just really proud of you because I'm really
Thank
just so
you.
proud of you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing to see. Becky has 3 categories that I love she uses. That she's, you've got the victim, then you've got the survivor that has come out, they've escaped, and then there's the thriver. And when I look at you and watch you and hear you tell your story, I don't see any sign of anything that you've talked about in your background. I don't see that there. You are definitely in the thriving stage. And
Thank
I tend,
you.
you're welcome. I tend to be like a little mother hen. And so I feel like anybody that's younger than me, I'm their mama somehow or their aunt. And and I was thinking the same thing that Becky said. And this is something I commonly say, and I don't mean to offend either, but I am proud of you also for what you have
Thank
accomplished
you.
from where you've come from. And oh my goodness, where you are. Incredible. And if you have any of your ladies, once this group is formed, or you meet someone in a different area other than this group, and you think that maybe they might be able to tell their story on here, we would love to interview them. You can come
I
back on
will.
with them.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you have some of these big life-changing things that you're seeing in yourself, feel free to contact us, and we can do another episode with you and just
Yes, I would
catch up
love
with you
to.
in a year or two or whatever. Yeah,
Yes, I would love to do that. Thank you.
absolutely. It has been a joy to have you on
Yes,
here.
very much. Mhm.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming on with us so much, Bonnie.
Very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And folks, thank you so much for joining us. And remember that no matter where you are in the process, you are always free to soar.